First thing that is really important. Crypto is, I would call it like a common phrase or word to describe a new advent of a database called a blockchain. Blockchains are just a different kind of database, which hasn't been improved upon since the 90s. Allows for the ability to actually own something digitally. And often that is a confusing concept because people at the moment believe, and you possibly could believe, that you own your digital property, like your photo albums or your videos or, music, whatever it could be. The reality is, since the way databases are made, that they're owned by one entity. Apple, as an example, on your phone. Everything on Apple's device is Apple's. That's what you subscribe to when you click to the terms of use and privacy policy. So if Tim Cook didn't like you one day, everything that you treasure on your phone would be inaccessible in 2 strokes on a keyboard. What blockchain does is it takes that concept of a database owned by a company and then breaks it down to the idea of a volunteer for profit, someone like me that has money to buy a computer to store your information and do all the things normal databases do. As a reward, I get the token on the network that I am supporting, and that's a blockchain. So we went from a centralized database to a decentralized peer-to-peer database, which is a really interesting concept. That process really started back in the beginning of the internet. The biggest concept I want you guys to take home, if nothing else, is blockchains are changing the internet and how we can use it. It's adding a function to the internet, which is why everyone is really excited about the future of it. In the 60s, there was ARPANET. That was just governments across the world building computers as big as a home, trying to just read instructions. 2 plus 2. It needs to create 4. But it was just reading instructions from humans. And then we connected those computers in the 70s through private budgets in Oracle and Microsoft, Apple, and we created a network that we call the internet. That came live in 89. From 89 to 2009, that was Web 2. So the first 30 years, all it could do is read. 89 to 2009, we could write to it. So me, you, anyone in the world could just write to the internet. And then somewhere else in the globe, they could read what I wrote. A tweet later later down the road, but it could also just be AOL. That was like the first messaging app that came out in the early 90s. It's the same process as a tweet. What allowed AOL to grow into a multi-billion-dollar business are protocols. The hardest part about blockchains is understanding that these things are raw material. Anyone in the world can build whatever they want with them. AOL looked at the internet, saw a protocol called SMTP, Simple Message Transfer Protocol. You don't have to worry about it. You've probably seen it in emails or something. But that's still used today. Over $100 trillion of value utilizes that protocol. And Ethereum is like SMTP, but for ownership. That's 2009 and looking forward. So there's a new function of the internet called own. We went from read to read plus write, and now it's read plus write plus own because of encryption. We're going to skip that, but basically everything on a blockchain is password protected, and it allows you to store your data on someone else's computer without there ever being a risk of a compromise. There's over 2.5 trillion that you could take from Bitcoin, and it hasn't happened yet. It's impossible. It's the most secure way to store data because it's all across millions of computers versus being owned by one entity. It gets rid of a single point of failure, which makes it the most secure system in the world. You have to get more than half of the entire network, and you have to break 500 something thousand devices on Bitcoin inside of 10 minutes, and then the password changes. So it's incredibly secure. Next to the Bitcoin network that started there in 2009, there are all of these other things that have been built, and all of these things come to the tune of 21 million different tokens. Literally, there's so many tokens. It's a massive market. What they are all doing is taking the concept of a blockchain and then adding their own flair to it. They give it a specific purpose. They go down into a niche, or they use it for government projects. There's a really cool project to give you an idea. A little satellite, it sits on your yard, it looks at satellites, and it gets paid in its native token called Geode to pay you to buy the node to feed satellite data to the government, and they pay the network for that. It's at like a 300 million market cap. But the idea I want you guys to get is these altcoins, this is where they use blockchains differently. And they allow for really cool stuff like putting a bank online without any employees. Another example would be Aave. It is a protocol. Anyone in the world can use it. It's raw material. Donald Trump actually used that protocol to build World Liberty Financial, and he offers online banking services through Aave. He just put an interface on top of it. Aave is a bank with 300 billion in volume the last month with 0 employees, utilizing blockchains and smart contracts. The future of the internet is being able to build vehicles for people to own things. You incentivize people to contribute to that idea with the token because you can make a real return on that. Ethereum pays out about 18% a year on a validator node. Bitcoin miners can make anywhere from 5 to hundreds of percents depending on their cost of energy. There's real capital markets here. Taking a turn out of what this stuff is, there are some really important things to know when you're investing in crypto. A lot of mainstream media is going to tell you that it's risky, it's not safe, all this stuff. And everything I just covered should help give you some faith to understand that you cannot lose your crypto unless you give your keys or your information or your password to someone. And unfortunately, these people are getting really crafty. So you may give your information to them without you thinking that it's a scammer. And that's generally how things get compromised in crypto. And the past, I would say 12 years, the government has taken a very anti-crypto approach. But Trump is making a lot of that change. We just passed the Genius Act. There's 4 more bills coming down the pipe that he introduced during Crypto Week. The SEC chairman has changed to a crypto veteran. The CFTC chair has changed to a crypto veteran. So this stuff is getting more and more credibility. To dive deeper into the regulations, in America, we've actually been behind. Since this is a global network and it's on the internet, every country's view on crypto actually matters and makes an impact. And as you can see here, there's a lot of countries that have already been in the process of regulating this stuff and implementing it. China has been using blockchain in their society since 2018, roughly. You have the EU with MiCA, that's actually already here now, and that allows people to register real companies. They go public. It's a legitimate business in Europe, Hong Kong, China, India. America's actually been the laggard here. And all of that is changing in a very big way. I mean, the president of the United States has a DeFi company. Pretty crazy. And since everyone is flooding in to this market, it's important to know what to look out for. The biggest scam that I see, and I make content, I have a podcast, YouTube channel, I get a lot of DMs from a lot of people. The biggest thing that I see is a pig butchering scam, which is where you establish a relationship with someone through, it could be a post where you'll just see everyone promoting, hey, this guy made me all this money or something like that. They try to, bait you in a lot of different ways as detailed in the left column. And when you contact them, they show you screens, it looks real. What's actually happening is they have their own website with their own server, and they're just faking everything, manually typing in stuff into a database and showing you a website. The second you wire money into that website to try to make the same returns, they're just going to increase the numbers on their database, make you think you're rich. They'll keep doing that until you want to pull out. And then they'll say you need to pay taxes before you pull it out, which is not true. And then you'll just keep wiring money to get access to fake numbers. And they'll do that until you realize what's happened. That's the worst one, and there's a lot like that. But in that scenario, those are the stories you're hearing in mainstream media about people losing their crypto, getting compromised. It's crafty scammers making you think you're doing something good when you're not.
But what is really the difference with stable coins and using those as an investment vehicle?
Stable coins are not an investment vehicle. They are like dry powder that's on chain. we'll just go into the consumer experience first. So as an investor or, a user of crypto, to use a stablecoin, you have to link a bank account to an exchange of some kind. You put $1 in, and then you get the exact equivalent of a token out. So there's always a 1-to-1 ratio. It's really just a way to park money on chain or in crypto without having to worry about the price fluctuations, because this is a volatile market. The real purpose is to have your money on chain. The reason why you'd want to use a stable coin versus the traditional rails on Ethereum, which is one of the slower ones, it's still incredibly faster than anything that they use right now. You can send and settle a transaction all within 20 to 30 seconds. If you have any experience using Venmo or a credit card or anything else, you would know that the settlement happens after the message. The message and the settlement are two separate things, and it can take days or weeks depending on how much money. On Ethereum, if I sent you 100 stable tokens, you would get the message and the settlement at the same time. It gets rid of that lag entirely, and the intermediaries, and you may not even know your dollars are stable tokens. I would say stable tokens are the iPhone moment for crypto. It's one application of blockchain in an infinite world. I guess another thing that people really confuse is the idea that blockchain and crypto are the same thing. Like crypto, the meme coins, all of that stuff, that is crypto. Blockchain is a concept that is built by like the best engineers in the world, like PhDs. My fund and what I research is developments in blockchain. All these meme coins, as an example. Actually, it's embarrassing as a professional in this space to tell you that the trailing 30 days, the best performer was Fartcoin, but it did like 280%, I think, or something crazy like that. That is just gambling. It is like an online casino, but those tokens use a blockchain. They use Solana to publish the token, to support the liquidity of that token, to pay the fees. So when you buy a meme token of any kind on Solana, you're going to pay a little bit in SOL. So Solana, the protocol and the blockchain, makes a lot of money from one application being meme tokens or gaming, really a casino of sorts. Every single transaction you make buying and selling these things across the millions of meme tokens, all that eventually will boil down into Ethereum or Solana. They have over 90% of the meme token volume. That's why I recommend staying in the top 20. A lot of the top 20 are blockchains that have an immense amount of applications built on top of them. So you might miss out on Fartcoin, which is one out of probably 100,000 that do well, or you could just be more conservative and, own the databases that those crazy things are using. Because Solana may not be doing 300% a week or a month, but it is up 900% from the bottom. I don't think anyone's going to be mad at that kind of return with a much more conservative approach.